Hey ladies, good evening. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm so excited to be here. Let me just check I'm in the right group first of all. If you come on while I'm here, say hello. Say hello. Let's see. Are we in the right place? I think I'm in the right place. I'll fill in the rest of my title later on. But yeah, do say hi when you come on. So I'm just going to get in straight away and say I have been reading all of your posts this month and you ladies are so inspiring. And I'm so honored to be asked to speak to you today. In fact, when Michaela mentioned she was going to be running this because we're in a coaching group together, before she even asked, I was like, sign me up, sign me up. I absolutely wanted to be part of this because as you'll find out as we're talking, personal finance is something that I have been knee deep in and taking a real interest in and passionate about for many years. And so having a chance to talk to especially women about it, because that is the group of people that I look to coach as well. It's a real privilege to be here. Before I jump in, a bit of a disclaimer. If you hear stuttering, if you hear me stutter, it's fine. It's okay. It's just something that happens when I speak sometimes. It used to be a hell of a lot worse when I was a kid. But yeah, it happens. We're going to be fine. And we're going to carry on. So Michaela asked me to come speak today about budgeting, and I was asking what sort of questions she's had, and something that she said was coming up a lot was how you budget when you have irregular income. So I'm going to touch on that, but before I jump in, I'm going to talk a bit about my money story, because we all have one. We all have what our background is, what our experience is with money that sort of shaped how we handle it and how we think about it. So for me, growing up in Nigeria, money was something that was scarce for my family. My mom sort of got married straight out of secondary school. And so she had this little corner shop. And that was just basically a place to get food. There wasn't a lot of money coming out of that. The main income was from my dad's job, which after some time, I reckon maybe when I was about maybe 9, 10, he lost that. And so things became really tight. And so it wasn't so much talked about. It was just something we knew was difficult to have, and that was the conversation that was going on as well. So when I got my first business started, actually, can you tell me if you can hear me? I hope you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me, because this is going to be interactive. If you can't hear me, that's going to be a problem. Cindy, I see you're here. If you could let me know that you hear me, otherwise I'll just have to restart the whole thing, which I'm sure won't be fun. Okay, let me see. I'll give you a minute to confirm. Someone confirm that you can hear me okay. I could try it out here. Let's see. Okay, we have sound. I'll carry on. Okay, so which was why when I started my first business at the age of 16, I had carried that with me. And so every bit of money that I made, I was holding on to it tight in a way that I can only describe as coming from a place of scarcity, because that's all I'd known. And so I was holding on to it very tightly. Fast forward to, I guess, my late teens, when I got exposed to network marketing. Now, I know that that's something that can split the room. For some people, it's fantastic. For some people, they don't want to hear about it. Whatever you think of it, for me, one of the greatest things that I took away from it, I'm not doing that now, but one of the best things that I took away from it was a chance to see people who had a lot of money and they didn't have two heads. They looked just like me. So that sort of started to challenge the experience a bit, and just putting a different story in there that, you know, what you'd grown up with, that's not always the way it has to be. There's people just like yourselves who had, you know, worked at it and amassed wealth for themselves. And so where it all sort of really came together was in my early 20s when, you know, I'd gone on, established myself for some time. I'd moved to the UK at that point, and I had some difficulty with the Home Office. I'd submitted a visa application. I can laugh about it now, it wasn't funny at the time. And I'm telling you my life story, but there's a point to it. That application, it was all messed up, and so I had to go 2 years without being able to work and essentially just wait for them to come to a decision. And I had to rely on everything that I'd known to sort of survive. My son was 1 at the time, and it was at that point that I sort of put together the knowing that, you know, having an abundance was possible. There's the scarcity, but then finding a middle ground where we're able to live a pretty good life with not very much. But that was coming not from a place of scarcity, because I'd put it together at that point, but from a place of abundance, which is why this is what I teach. Managing money, whether you want to call it a budget, call it a spending plan, whatever you want to call it, but doing it not from a place of not having enough, but from a place of abundance. I say, you know, why you don't do a budget because you don't have enough. You do it because you're the boss and you're telling your money where to go. So now that you know about me, I'm going to want some interaction for you, whether you catch this live now or you watch it on replay. You know, comment in as well, so that I know, you know, where you stand as well. And when I come in later on to look at comments, I can know sort of what sort of support to provide there. So on a scale of well, let's do this one first. Comment one if you have either never done a budget before, or just like the whole thing just doesn't work for you. You've even if you've created one, you've never used it. Comment a 1 for that one. So 1 being you've never done it, or you've done one but never used it. And then comment 2 if you're someone that already has a budget and is using it. So I'm going to give you some time to put your comments in there. Let me see if I will see any comments. I think Facebook's probably playing up. so I'm probably not going to see comments as they come in. But I'll wait a little bit because I want this to be interactive. I want to hear where you're at so I can pitch it as much as possible to be relevant for you. Okay. Anyone there? Anyone there? I can't see any comments, so they're probably taking some time to come in. But even if you watch this on replay, put your comments in there as well, because I'll be quite interested to hear where you're coming from. And then the second bit of interaction I want from you, this is what we're saying on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being, I don't make enough money. That's the issue. I need to make more, then it's going to be fine. Or 10 being, no, I absolutely make enough. I just need support with a spending plan, with a budget on how to manage it. So 1 being, I don't make enough. 10 being, I make enough. I just need to manage it better. So I'll give you some time again to put that in there, whether you're watching live or on replay. I hope this is going well. If someone tells me if there is any issues, let's see. Okay, no, that's not a message from here to say there's a problem. Okay, so if you watch this on replay, comment that as well. I would love to know that. Now, whatever comment you've put on there, I can tell you straight away, it's absolutely crucial to know that it's not about how much you're making, it's how you're using it and how you're planning with it. So when I teach women, and teaching from a place of abundance, I start with thinking of your net worth. So let's come away from the day to day, the month to month. We are looking to increase our net worth. So when you read online about the wealthy people, they're not talking on a month to month basis. They're saying what is their net worth. Now, to work out what that is, you need to put together how much is everything that you own. So anything that you own outright, whether that be a house, a car, any stuff within your house, minus anything that you owe, any debt that you're carrying. What's the difference there? Are you getting something that's in the positive or something that's in the negative? And what we want to do is have a net worth that is in the positive, obviously. And that's the sort of big picture thinking that we're talking about. So that is some homework for you to go off and do after this. Work out what is your net worth, because we want to increase that. Now, the other thing that I absolutely start with when I coach women is thinking about your why. Why do you want your finances in order? And this might sound like a silly question because, of course, you want to have the money to do things in the day to day. But up to a certain point, remember here we're thinking about abundance. We're thinking about getting not just about the day to day, but thinking bigger. So why are you doing this? What is it that is bigger than you that's making you want to do this? So, is it you want to leave a legacy? I know that a lot of us here are moms. Do you have children that you want to leave something for? That's something that is bigger than you, that legacy that you want to leave behind from a true place of wealth. Is it a cause that you're passionate about? Is there something that is dear to your heart? Like for me, for example, growing up, school, education, that was my safe place. That was a place that I knew exactly how it worked. And ultimately, education is what got me away from the circumstances of my birth, sort of where I grew up in. That's what got me the scholarship to get away. And so education, especially for children that are in and have grown up in what you'd call less privileged. I'm thinking specifically countries where if you're orphaned, that is it for you. So for me, something that drives me is being able to provide an education for children in that position. So maybe, just maybe, they might get a chance to see that there could be something else. I struggle to talk about this without getting a bit wet in the eyes, and it's happening again. So we're not going to do that. But you find a cause, or if there is a cause that is dear to your heart, that gets you going, and that is something, like for me personally, that drives me to want to have as much money as possible to put towards that, so that when my basic day-to-day needs are met, that's not a time to get complacent for me, because it's bigger than me, it's bigger than myself. So that's something else for you to think about, and something that might drive you past the here and now. So in terms of actually how to create a budget itself, now there's a lot of resources out there. There are a lot of videos, there are a lot of things out there, people showing examples. The bottom line, you have to find a system that works for you. A system that works for you to the point where you're going to stick to it, because it's no point starting if you're not going to stick to it. You need to decide on a system. Are you going to be using apps? Are you going to be using pen to paper? Are you going to be using spreadsheets? You need to decide what system is going to work for you. When I coach women, that's one of the first things that we look at, identifying what system's going to be more suited to their personality, and picking that, sticking to it, and getting started. So that's the first thing. Now let's see, if you're wondering if you need one, how we talked about your net worth, and we talked about all of the things that you own versus all of the things that you owe. Most of us here, I'm sure we've been working for at least 5 to 10 years. How much money have you made during that time? This is an exercise that we'll work through as well, just to drive home the point that this needs to happen. How much have you made in the last 5 to 10 years? How much of that do you have left? Of the amount that you have left, have you deducted any debt? Because the point of that exercise is money that's not told where to go flies out the window. Absolutely. And that's why we do this. That's why we have a plan. That's why we give it a job to do, so that it does exactly what we want it to do. So once you've decided on your system, focusing a bit more on if you have an irregular income and how to regularize that. What you want to be looking at is what has been your income for the last 6 months. That's an exercise, whether you're using your bank statements to figure that out. What have you been having coming in for the last 6 months? You want to get that number to hand. Next, you want to look at what is your fighting number. Your fighting number, that is the number that you absolutely need to have a life. That is the number that if you have less than that, things start to go really bad. So if you think about it like a bit like if you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or like a food pyramid, where you start from the bottom with the things that are absolutely crucial, basic, and then you work your way up to things that are optional. So what is the number? What is the amount of money that's going to have that covered? Be clear on absolutely what that is. That's the next bit of exercise that you're going to be working through in the process of creating a budget. So once you've figured out that number, now if you're someone that I think most of us here have our own businesses, so if you run a business and the amount that you make that you make fluctuates from month to month, my suggestion for that is you need to have a separate account, I'm sure most of you have this, for your business versus a personal account. What you then do is pay yourself a wage from your business account to your personal account that you're going to use for your spends. What you then do is, even though the business income might be irregular, but you create for yourself a regular income that's going to come in on a month-to-month basis, and that's what you're going to use. Starting with the things within your fighting number, and then work your way up for things that are optional. This is all stuff that I support with, by the way. Okay, so when you've done that, have that set up and have your wage coming in terms of percentages, I'm going to, for the sake of you guys tonight, keep it pretty general, with room for you to tweak it and adjust it to your circumstance, because we're all in different places. What I recommend is to have no more than around 70% of your income going towards those things that are absolute necessities. Around 70%, and it's absolutely doable. Personally, I am having, everything met within 50% of my income. That's not because I make an insane amount of money. Absolutely not. Absolutely average, if anything. But that's something, I share that to show that that is something that is possible. So you want to aim for around 70% of your income to be going towards those things that absolutely need to happen. Remember the fighting number we talked about? You want that to be there. That leaves you 30% to do other things with. Here's some recommendations and suggestions for what to do with that. Now, the next thing I'll be looking at, if you don't have an emergency fund, otherwise known as an uh-oh fund, when our kids go, uh-oh, like unexpected stuff's happened. I've heard someone call it a life tax as well, because as part of just being alive, stuff happens, especially on a serious note, what's happening right now with the COVID-19 and how it was completely unexpected. And, having fund set aside to protect yourself for stuff like that. I recommend having anywhere from between 3 to 6 months of your fighting number, that amount that you need to have to be okay. So have about 3 to 6 months worth of that number set aside. If you don't have that right now, that's fine. 10% of what's left over, you can start putting towards that, towards building that up. You don't have to have it all at once, but if you don't have that, I would say absolutely start working and putting away 10% of that to go towards that and build up that number. That just takes so much pressure off. There's enough pressure as it is already. What you don't want is, being absolutely worried if something happens, because stuff happens, but we can plan for it. We know that things happen. So it takes a bit of the pressure off yourself, off your business, and just knowing that if anything were to happen, you have a bit of a buffer. You have something there to tide you over for a few months. Now you want another 10% of what's left going towards investment. Now that's investment in both yourself, which I would say is one of the most important things, and also investment in assets. So investment in yourself, whether that be learning a new skill, not necessarily, my son's in the house, not necessarily sort of going to college or university as we call it here, but investing in a skill, investing in your coach, because the marketplace pays for skills, pays for result. And it's important to have something in your budget that is going towards continually bettering yourself. Investment in assets as well. Get into those finances. Let us not be scared of things like getting into, I know the stock market's going crazy now, but there's money there to be made. You want money there to take advantage of opportunities as they do come along. So that's another 10% going on there. The final 10%, I would recommend setting that aside for either, if you have debt, of course we want to cover that, especially if it's debt that I class as bad debt that has high interest rate, or for something that has no chance of bringing you any income in. You want to clear stuff like that. If you don't have that, you can put that money towards giving, if that's something that is part of who you are and you have something that you're passionate about. I think it's so important to give, not only for the good that it does, but also it's a reminder to put you in a place of that abundance again. Going back to abundance. If you're giving, if you're sharing, that just reminds you that actually you're in a good place. There are people that you have more of an advantage over, and that just puts you constantly in that state of reminder. Within that as well, I am looking at things for fun, and I'm going to finish on that later on. Not quite there, but you absolutely need some fun in there. Things that you do that just bring you joy, not necessarily because they're absolutely necessary, but things that just make you happy. You want to have that in there as well. So that's the sort of general overview, split percentages. Of course, we're all going to be in different positions. So right now, if you're saying, I absolutely cannot leave off 70% of my income, start somewhere. Do you need to have those percentages? If you need to live on 80% of your income or 90% of your income, what that means is those other categories, you can make them smaller. But what's important is to get into the habit of being someone who puts money aside. You want to get into the habit of, I am someone that invests. I am someone that invests not just in myself, but in people. I am someone that gives. I am someone who, when an opportunity turns up, I have the disposable income to take advantage of that. And that is what the wealthy people do. It's not something that happens overnight. It's about creating a habit. I don't care if it's 1% that needs to go towards that. Get into the habit of doing it. And as your income grows, you can change that percentage. You can make it bigger, but get into the habit of doing that. Something that's going to help with that I talk about all the time: automate, automate, automate. You want to make it as easy as possible for yourself and remove resistance. So I have standing orders, direct debits set up for those things, so that as my money comes into my account, it's going out. I don't see it. There's no chance for it to get lost in somewhere or go somewhere else. It's automated in and out. If you need to have different bank accounts to make that happen, do that, whatever you need to do to automate it. So it comes in, it goes out, and it's done. Take advantage of things that are there to make it easier for you until it becomes habit. So automation is your friend. Okay, so let's pull over there. Now, in some cases, you might just need to make more. You might just need to make more money because the numbers just don't work. And so, I'm sure Michaela will be more than happy to give you the coaching that you need to build your brand and establish yourself as an authority where you can use that to drive your income up. There are opportunities to do that. But that is why you need to be investing in yourself, because the way you learn to make more is if you increase the value that you provide, or you might just need to take on another job temporarily, I must add, to increase your income. For some people, that is just what it needs to be. You just need to make more. And if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. You want to increase your net worth. Let's see. Just before I move on from that, just to reiterate, if you resonated with that last point, that doesn't mean you get to get off the hook in terms of creating a budget, in terms of putting a spending plan together, because it doesn't matter how much more you make. If you don't have the skills of how to put your money to work, how to get it working for you, how to manage it, making more is not going to fix that. You can make so much more, it's going to go exactly the same way. So whether right now you genuinely need to make more, the habit of knowing how to put a plan for your money, absolutely important. Talking about the temporary measures, I know that that's something, when we're talking about abundance, is something we might not want to hear. The fact of temporarily doing things different. Temporarily making your living expenses small. If you're doing it with a bigger goal in mind, if you're doing it because you want to get there fast, if you're doing it because you want to get that financial independence, that abundance fast, it's something that a lot of people have found useful. Case in point, our coach, that like I said at the start, I am in a coaching program with Michaela. When she was getting her business off the ground, she had to temporarily decide to leave her house and go live in a caravan, so that at that point her outgoings could be small, so that she could free up money to invest in herself, to free up money to invest in her ability to make more income. And that was only temporary. I'm not saying that you have to do that, but within 2 years, that situation completely changed. I think she was actually only in the van for about 6 months, building her income by improving her skills up to that point. Now she can have whatever house she wants. So it doesn't even have to be long term. It can be temporary. Unless you're someone that likes the challenge. I know there are people like that who like to challenge themselves to see how small they can keep their outgoings. If that's you, by all means, go ahead and do that. But there's nothing wrong with taking measures like that. It's not from a place of scarcity. It's about looking at the big goal. It's about looking at the long-term goal if you're doing it for the purpose of increasing your income overall and improving your skill set. And some unexpected benefits can come from something like that as well. I was listening to a lady the other day who made the decision to move from a bigger house to a smaller house, and something she found was that her teenage kids, who would be in separate wings of the house and barely saw each other, because they moved to a smaller place, they were spending more time together as a family in the same space. Stuff like that you can't put a price on. So you might find some unexpected benefits as well from taking measures like that if you're doing it with the bigger goal in mind. So let's see, make sure I have covered most of what I want to cover. And then, of course, as your income grows, which I know it will, if you are managing your money right, if you are having as much of it do work for you, it will multiply itself. That is what money does. As your income grows, you can tweak your percentages, you can adjust it, you can, live on less percentage wise, because let's say, for example, your income goes up to £1 million or $1 million a year. You might not necessarily want to have your necessities be 700,000. So you can make that smaller, and then you can put more of that into other things that matter to you. Now we're talking legacy. Now we're talking about making an impact on things that are bigger than yourself, really having that abundance mindset. And knowing how to manage your money doesn't stop at that point. It tweak the numbers slightly. I promise you, the people who have wealth that stick, I don't mean the one that's here today, gone tomorrow, but the one that stays, the one that gets passed down from generation to generation. They know exactly where their money is going, and they do it with purpose. It's driven. It's something that is bigger than them. So to finish, my favorite thing, talking about the fun that I touched on briefly, The fun budget, I don't joke with that stuff when I coach women through budgeting. That is an integral part of the budget, because if you don't have something in there that's gonna make your heart sing, that's gonna just make you feel like, yes, it's all okay, you'll give up on it. You're not gonna stick to it. So we've all got our guilty pleasures. For me, that will be when I'm planning out my diary, when I'm planning out my money, I want to know that there's something in there that's going to pay for my massage. I want my massage sessions. And, you know, it's a small thing, but that's something that just makes a world of difference. If I don't have one, is the house going to fall down? Absolutely not. But that's something that is for well-being. So whatever that is for you, I'm not even going to try and guess what it's going to be for you, but you want to plan that in there, something that's going to be there as an outlet, so you don't get wound up in the whole getting into the detail and make yourself not stick to it. You want to have something in there that's going to be an outlet. I call it fun, call it whatever you want to call it, but have something in there that's going to be, you know, just for you. So, because at the end of the day, a budget is a tool in your hands. It's not something that's there to control you. It's something that you're using just as a tool to tell your money where to go and make it serve you better. So I hope that has been valuable for you. I'm going to stick around for the next 15-20 minutes or so. If there are any questions, to take them. And of course, I'll pop in the group later on as well to see if there's anything else. But it has been, like I said, an absolute pleasure to be asked to come on here and speak to you all. And the many hats that you ladies wear, totally inspiring to read them and see what you're up to. Okay, lots of love, guys. Take care. Bye.